only be determined by where it's located, and so happens to be located within 200 nautical miles of Palawan.
Where we have exclusive
Philippine
sovereign
territory,
rights. Yeah,
no?
exactly.
Not Chinese territory, Philippine territory.
Yeah.
And therefore, it is within our exclusive economic zone in continental shelf. And therefore, the rights to the resources there and the right to manage activities there belongs only to the Philippines. And China cannot make any valid claim on
Right.
any kind of basis, no, to that particular area, because it is our EEZ and continental shelf, and they have no island or rock within 12 nautical miles of that area upon which they can
Right.
claim any other rights.
And there are fake islands in the area, in the Fire Cross, and all of that. Walang
Yeah.
implication dapat yan legally,
Wala
diba?
yun, because those are
Operationally, maybe not
artificial
legally.
islands.
Yeah.
Okay? The closest one is Mischief Reef, which the tribunal also found to be originally a low tide elevation. And therefore, the authority to establish any kind of artificial island or installation there belonged only to the Philippines, not to
Right.
China. Okay, so when China built that artificial island there, again, it contravened the Philippines. It violated the Philippines' rights to its EEZ and continental shelf. Kasi nga, the most effective means of acquiring sovereignty is through effective occupation and
Right.
control over a period of time. And we have been there, as you mentioned, no, since the early 70s. Actually, I think it's late 60s pa nga.
Yeah.
Mga
No, I was
68
just
or
referring to the
70.
airstrip at least, no,
Yeah.
and a little bit bigger, presence.
But
Yeah.
we have definitely been able to exercise acts of sovereignty over that area for a very long time. And before we entered into that area, China was nowhere to be seen. Okay? The only reason they were there was because of fishing. But fishing is not a means for acquiring
Right.
territory. Okay? Even if Itoaba was occupied by Taiwan, and even
Right.
if Taiwan is considered to be part of China, representing China, still, no, that occupation is effective only with respect to the island itself,
Right.
not every other island in the area.
Right. Again, thank you very much for that, Jay. I mean, of course, there's a number of other features there na low tide elevation din. But what about, di ba there are parts of Calayan Group of Islands na medyo lampas na sa ating exclusive economic zone? But
Yes.
we have some
Yes.
and they're low tide elevations, right?
Pagasa
Iroquois
Island
Reef
itself,
or something like that. Or,
it's beyond 200
yeah.
nautical miles.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay? What is important here is that, we're not claiming the islands and rocks above water at high tide on the basis of the easier continental shelf. We're claiming them on the basis of effective occupation and control.
Right.
Okay? So even if they're outside the 200-mile line, the 200-mile easy continental shelf, the sovereignty claim still exists independently of that.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Now, any low tide elevations there, if they are subject to that, or if they're close to these islands and rocks that we do occupy, then if they're within 12 nautical miles, then we are deemed to have sovereignty and rights over that as
Right.
well, no, by extension. Okay? That's why what's happening in Pagasa Island is very important. No? In the past few years, since 2020, 2021, you had this swarming of these Chinese maritime militia. And the Coast Guard vessels actively preventing Filipino units, fishermen, or people from Pagasa Island from even coming close to these nearby low tide elevations.
Right.
That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to undermine the effective occupation and control of the Philippines to those
Right.
areas within 12 nautical miles of Pagasa Island. And it's very, very important for us, no, to ensure and keep trying to show that no, China's attempts to interfere with us have not worked. We are still there. We are still administering these areas.
Right. And last myth, I mean, there are a couple of others na I don't think it's worth for us to even patol. But patulan natin itong isa kasi I don't know if you got that because the other month, a number of journalists in the Philippines, including yours truly, suddenly got some weird requests out of nowhere na, have you seen what Manila Times, for instance, wrote about Vietnam's reclamation, whatever, in the area? Would you like to write something about that? And my response was very clear, like, I have no problem writing about Vietnam, but if this is about giving China a pass by emphasizing the case of Vietnam, then I don't think I'm interested, right? So as academics, of course, we're fine to talk about how each party is dealing with this issue, but unfortunately, what's happening, Jay, it looks like Vietnam is being used as a way to give China a pass. Now, can you explain to our audience what Vietnam is doing is not necessarily anywhere close to what China is doing, and doesn't and this what about this argument that actually doesn't make sense. I mean, kalaban ba natin ang Vietnam kasi may ginawa sila sa atin noong 1970s, nag-party daw sa island, natulog, the next thing nandun yung Vietnamese. You know the whole shtick, right? Like, can you explain that?
Ay, nako. Yeah, I also received those types of letters from different, under different names.
Yeah.
And the thing there is that immediately I could see that it was dubious report. No?
Yeah.
Just reading the Manila Times report, for example, you can see that it's very bad journalism. They did not even try to verify the identity of the person. They didn't even try to find any kind of corroborating evidence to the reported documents or reported events. No? Also, exaggerated agad when they were reporting that
Right.
Vietnam was planning so much reclamation. It was like 10 times bigger than even China reclaimed in the South China Sea. So doon pa lang alam mo na fake.
Fake news talaga to, yeah.
Yeah. And then the other thing there is that the activities that were being reported actually had already been monitored as early as 2017 and 2019 and 2021.
Right.
They have the pictures, in fact, no satellite imagery of these reclamation activities. So kumbaga, it's old news, but the apparent intention was to create doubts and try to create redirect attention towards Vietnam's
Yeah.
activities, no, instead of China's, which had been getting all of it, no. But Vietnam's reclamation activities are actually comparable to ours, okay,
Yeah.
in terms of the methods and the area. No?
Yeah.
We've been conducting some small reclamation on Pag-asa Island, for example, which is necessary for us to renovate and They did not stop exploring for all these Vietnamese fishermen and bring them to court several times. And unfortunately, we were even able to kill one Vietnamese fisherman at one point.
2017, I think there was an incident. Yeah.
Yeah, so when it comes to Vietnam, it's nowhere near what China has been doing.
Yeah.
And between the Philippines and Vietnam, they've been able to keep on talking and resolve their issues bilaterally. So much so that we even have exchanges of personnel on our islands. We've been able to visit Vietnamese islands. They've been able to visit our islands.
And the ones that Vietnam occupies are way beyond that, no? Our exclusive economic zone. I mean, the paracels we totally there. The other ones that they occupy, 20 or so, are way beyond our claimed area. So they're not a threat to us in that sense, right?
The largest ones that they have are well beyond our EEZ.
Exactly.
And they only have smaller outposts inside our EEZ, but those are on the outer portion of the EEZ. And therefore, they do not pose as much of a threat to us as China's 3 massive military bases in the Calayan Island group. Okay? Yun, talagang they now have full-blown naval and air stations there. They're fully armed with missiles. Their missiles can reach all the way up to Palawan.
Yeah.
So, compared to Vietnam, clearly, by any measure, China is the far bigger threat, and it has been the far more unreasonable party, in the South China Sea.
And lastly, Jay, let's talk about this. Of course, we have a kind of a not man ticking time bomb, if I can put it, but the situation in Ayungin is very, very sensitive. Malampaya is also paubos na. So it looks like yung sinasabi na ni Deng Xiaoping na, we can wait it out another generation, whatever. Like, yeah, in general, maybe, but there are a couple of issues here and there. Now, we cannot wait a generation. In a year or so, I mean, we had an interview with Romel Ong, a former Rear Admiral. He said, actually, itong Ayungin Shoal, expect namin nung isang year pa wala na yung yung vessel natin na grounded sa Sierra Madre. So clearly something drastic has to be done in the short term, putting aside parking the legal aspect, operationally speaking. And then of course, the Malampaya paubos na rin yan. We were talking about a year or two. So hindi natin pwedeng hintayin itong kalokohan na code of conduct negotiations, ito yung mga padribble-dribble ng China, because our national interest and exploitation of those resources are at stake. Operationally speaking, Jay, now take out your lawyer hat or half lawyer hat. Let's talk operational. What do you think are should be the next moves?
Well, like you said, no, there's a sense of urgency. No, China is actually holding us back from development. No? The Philippines' national interest, its national right where they want us, no? In a position of fear, a position of submission, no? And eventually we will lose all of these islands, no? If we allow that to happen. Okay? So I think it's a very important juncture at this
So
point. No?
Jay, do you think we should cash in the alliance now? Do you think the Americans should join? I mean, kind of be over the horizon at the very least when the next resupply is about to happen and the resupply is to come. And alam natin, hindi pwede food and water lang. We have to do some construction in that Ayungin area, right? Because I think the moment that thing falls apart, the Chinese are going to do something there. Should the Americans help directly, indirectly with the construction in the area? Should other like-minded allies and friends have some sort of area? Should other like-minded allies and friends have some sort of patrols in the area? I mean, is this the time to cash it in? I mean, is this the time to cash it in?
I think staying in the background or just nearby
Yeah, just over the horizon.
is
Yeah,
is the minimum that we should ask them
minimum.
for.
Okay.
In the end, this is still our fight. No, this is our claim, and we should basically, put our money where our mouth is.
Yeah.
If we're really intent on pursuing these claims, then we should do what we need to do. At minimum, repair Sierra Madre so that it lasts a bit longer. No? Maximum is build a facility. After all, it's our jurisdiction. No?
Right. It's not a territory to be claimed anyway. It's just it's just a
Yeah.
multi-elevation. Yeah.
It's an exercise of our exclusive sovereign rights over the area and our jurisdiction to establish artificial islands and installations anywhere in our EEZ and continental shelf.
Yeah.
That is our lawful right under international law. And any interference by China can only be a use of force contrary to international law. Okay? If they prevent us from doing that, then it is essentially coercion. It is an interference in the actions and activities of a sovereign nation.
And it could invoke also the Mutual Defense Treaty, at least in principle, right?
I think it can invoke the Mutual Defense Treaty, which means that those ships on the horizon, if they're there, can respond if they see a hostile act against our people.
Right.
And they can do what they need to do to protect our people from being subject to acts of aggression and force.
Right.
Now, of course, that's already going to be a rather tense situation. It will be a brink. And it will really be a test now of the nation and its leadership.
Yeah.
Whether it escalates or does not, and on what terms, that's where we will see what kind of country we are and what kind of leaders we have.
All right, last question, Dr. J. Batumbakal. Unity ba? Yan ba ang sagot ngayon? I mean, you and I are gonna be in trouble for quite some time kasi, I mean, let's call a spade, no? In this sense, in a good sense, at least we don't have a president anymore who's bashing our own case. We don't have a president who's prosecuting the case for another country, in this case, China. At least we have a president who's doing at least a bare minimum, if not more than that, right? Do we feel more confident with this administration that they have the proper combination of diplomacy and steadfastness to do what it takes to make sure we catch up for the 6 years that we lost more or less under Digong?
Well, definitely in the past few months, the administration's decisions and statements have been much more robust and much more aligned with the national interest, really. No? And that national interest, it's basically an interest of a unified nation. Okay? Not political, not in the sense of electoral unity, okay? But real unity in the sense of we being one people with national interests.
Yeah.
So I think that, yes, that is what is needed now. We have to basically show our support for the actions of the government with respect to the West Philippine Sea and our national interest. No? And I hope people will not see that as some kind of political being a political butterfly or political
Yeah.
bandwagon, regardless of who is the leader. No, hypothetically, even if BBM did not win and somebody else is in the seat,
Yeah.
if that leader were to take these types of positions, we would definitely still be supporting it. No?
Yeah.
Kasi nga, it's the one that is aligned with our
National interest.
long-term
Yeah.
interest as a nation. No?
And
This
international
is
law,
our
right?
seat.
It's not like our
Yeah.
claims are as crazy
Yeah.
as some na yung mga
Yeah.
ancestors natin 2,000 years ago duman dyan, atin na yan. It doesn't work that way,
Okay.
no? This mumbo jumbo stuff.
Yeah. All that we're advocating is what we are entitled to under international law, under an agreement that we all signed, including China.
Yeah.
Diba? Now, we have been trying hard to abide by that agreement to the point that we have been giving up some of our claims from the 1950s, no? Like the Treaty of Paris lines. No?
Right.
We can expect nothing less from China, because that's really the only way where we can have an equitable distribution, really, of these resources in the South China Sea.
Yeah. Thank you very much, the Doctor, Attorney, Professor, and like, I'm gonna go the German way. Jay Batumbakal
Thanks, John.
for helping us. Actually, I thought we could do it in 30 minutes, and then I realized no, we really have to explain the whole context. So thank you for at least helping us to debunk 6 common disinformation. So siguro, Jay, we should also make our own bakery, no? Para lang may forum din tayo. Alam na this. On that note, thank you very much, Jay, and please get some rest. Catch up din tayo soon. God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. All right. Thank you very much, mga kameta. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I know this was a little bit more complicated and kailangan kasi meticuloso yung explanation. Hindi pwede yung Alamano style or Tatay Digong style. Dapat medyo in-explain na. So pasensya na, tumagal ito beyond what I was expecting. I thought mga 30 minutes pwede na yan. Let's catch up and I'll try to post at least, especially yung highlights, no, yung 6 disinformation myths, no, ng ating mga kaibigan dyan, no. So we had to strike them one by one. So just a recap. First, we established how China cannot just say, oh, may exception clause, therefore exempted na kami, or supposedly hindi sila hindi nag-participate, so automatically walang basihan yan. So we explained that cannot work because, it's up to the relevant courts to adjudicate whether the exception clauses are applicable. Number 2, we proved that actually this court was under the aegis of UNCLOS. We explained Article 287 Annex 7 of UNCLOS. It's there. Actually, you can check it online yourself. Number 3, we proved or we established that the arbitration case was not useless, as Tatay put it. Actually, it has had a lot of benefits, not only for us, but a lot of our neighbors. Number 4, we also established that actually ASEAN was not totally useless because at least Vietnam somehow supported our case and somehow gave momentum before even the final award came out. And when the final award came out, Vietnam somehow affirmed it. So there was at least a push, at least by one country or two within our neighborhood. Number 5, we established that, well, it's true that there's no territorial claim, a dimension dun sa arbitration case natin. Nevertheless, well, in the case of Scarborough Shoal, at least yung ating mga mangingista have the right to fish in the area because it's a common fishing ground at hindi sila pwede haras ng China, which is what they have been doing, and that's illegal. Sa Ayungin Shoal, it's not even a territory to be claimed. It's part of our exclusive economic zone. So, wala talagang masiyan yung sinasabi ng China. And in Pag-asa, well, let's challenge China. Let's take that to international court. And because we have had continuous and effective exercise of sovereignty, at least we have a good chance of actually winning should China be ever open to taking this to international adjudication. And lastly, about the whataboutism. Bakit yung Vietnam ganyan? We clearly established that what Vietnam represents is in no way comparable to what China is doing. They're not sending their Coast Guard water and cannoning us. They're not pointing military great lasers at our folks. They're not bullying our fishermen with massive Coast Guard ships, etc. So, wag tayo magpaloko sa mga ganyan whataboutis style na yan. Alright? And then we discuss some of the solutions. So don't worry, I'll try to put this together and then post it soon so that ma-appreciate natin. I just felt it was time to do this kasi one by one, point by point, we had to go through this nonsense. Alright? Maraming salamat and thank you very much and talk to you guys soon.